I drink 4 glasses of beer every day because I love it.
I think it's worse for me to be fat than it is for me to smoke.
If you feel that your intelligence is superior, that is, if you feel that you are smarter than almost anyone you know, add 2 years. No, I think I'm average. I don't think I'm. I always think of what Will Rogers says, we're all dumb, but just about different things.
Adults in middle age can do a great deal to better their chances of living a long and healthy life. That's because the biological clock that governs our physical development sets an upper limit for the lifespan and leaves it up to us to get as close as we can to that limit. The limit is in the range of 100 to 120 years. Professor Diana Woodruff-Pak has designed a questionnaire that tells us how we're doing, how close we're coming to the potential set in the biological clock. It's called the life expectancy test. The life expectancy test is a teaching tool based on scientific information that yields a personal estimate of life expectancy, how long each of us is likely to live. It isn't a crystal ball. It doesn't reveal the year in which we'll die, but rather what we can do now to live, better and longer. In this program, we'll work through the life expectancy test with a 47-year-old woman we'll call Susan and a 59-year-old man we'll call Larry. Who is likely to outlive whom? And does either have a reasonable chance of living to be 100 years old?
Well, last time I went to the doctor, he says, you're in good shape, you're going to live to be 60. I said, I am 60. He says, see, I told you.
Okay, but you're not 60. Actually, how old are you?
I'm 59 years and 10 months.
So you're about to be 60.
I'll be 60 in 2 months, yeah.
Perfect. According to the latest life expectancy tables, men in your group can expect 19 additional years of life. So 59 plus 19 would be?
78.
78. In the life expectancy test, you start with the average number of years a person your age and sex can expect to live. Then you add or subtract years based on factors in your own life. The average man Larry's age can expect to reach 78. The average woman, 83. A woman gets 5 more years, not because of anything she does, but just because she's female. Why?
Well, I think we women are biologically superior.
Professor Woodruff-Pak.
In all species in the wild, the female of the species lives longer. So that's one of the reasons we think it's a biological rather than necessarily just a social kind of effect.
The biological clock appears to program longer lives for women, and women maintain their biological edge from the first instant of life to the very last. About 120 males are conceived for every 100 females, but the hazards of male development are so great that at birth only 106 males are left for every 100 females. And at age 80, it's down to 50 males per 100 females. So if you're looking for a long life, it pays to be female. It also pays to have long-lived ancestors, as Larry finds out at the beginning of the questionnaire.
Now then, we have all these other variables I should look at, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let me start now. Longevity of grandparents. Have any of your grandparents lived to age 80 or beyond? Then you add 1 year for each grandparent living beyond that age. I think 2 of my 4 grandparents lived beyond 80.
Right.
Then it says add 1/2 year for each grandparent surviving beyond the age 70. 1.
One did.
1 of the 4. The 4th was killed in an accident.
So we had 2.5 years for that.
Okay.
Which brings you up to 80.5.
All right. Longevity of parents. If your mother lived beyond the age of 80, add 4 years. Yes, she's still living. She's beyond 80. Then it says add 2 years if your father lived beyond 80. He did not.
So that would bring you up to 84.5 years.
Right.
So the genetic contribution that you've received is a very good one.
So far, isn't it? Yeah.
Genes seem to have a major influence on longevity. If you want to live a long time, it's very wise to pick, in order of importance, a long-lived mother, a long-lived father, and long-lived grandparents. Length of life in these family members is related to length of life in offspring. This was the case with Florence Knapp, who died recently at the age of 114. Professor Woodruff-Pak studied Miss Knapp's family tree.
Her grandfather, Ibram Knapp, was born in 1792, and he lived to be 83 years old. You have to understand that life expectancy then was probably about 40. All four of Florence Knapp's grandparents lived beyond 70. Three of them lived beyond 80. So her genealogy, plus a lot of other data, indicates to me there's a strong hereditarian effect on life expectancy.
Though Larry lost points for being male, he benefited immensely from his genetic contribution to life expectancy. Now he manages to avoid subtractions for hereditary diseases, and he picks up a year for being the firstborn in his family. He's already reached 85 and a half years. Let's see how Susan's doing. Susan is 47. Women her age in the United States can expect to live to be 81. That's 6 more years than men of the same age. Susan's genetic contribution neither added to nor subtracted from her starting figure, so she comes to the point where Larry is, still expecting 81 years of life. The questions change from genetic history to personal health habits.
Wait, are you currently overweight? Find your ideal weight on Table A. For the past 18 years, my weight has been stable within a 10-pound range.
Okay, so we don't even have to consult the table, I don't think.
And I don't think so. I'm within a normal weight range. Okay, so I still stay 81.
Obesity is a clear health risk related to heart disease, diabetes, and stroke. It's wise to lose excess weight and to avoid constantly changing your weight. Those who live the longest seem not to be that concerned about food. They eat the right kind, but they regard it almost as fuel so they can do other things.
Dietary habits. Do you prefer vegetables, fruits, and simple foods to foods high in fat and sugar? And do you always stop eating before you feel really full? If the honest answer to both questions is yes, add 1 year. It's not an honest answer yes to both. I'd much rather eat foods high in fat and sugar, but I don't. And I'd much rather not stop before I'm full, but I always stop before I'm full. So do I still get to add a year?
Yeah.
Add 1 year.
Okay.
I'm now 82. Smoking. How much do you smoke? If you smoke 2 or more packs of cigarettes a day, subtract 12 years. If you smoke 1 and 2 packs a day, subtract 7 years. If you smoke less than a pack a day, subtract 2 years. If you've quit smoking, congratulations, you subtract no years at all. Well, I smoke almost a pack a day, so I have to take 7 years off. All right?
What do you think about that?
I think it's terrible.
So what are you at now?
I'm 75.
Smoking cigarettes is a known risk factor for many of the serious diseases that can affect adults. This includes 1/3 of all cancer deaths, especially lung cancer, but also cancer of the bladder, kidney, mouth, and stomach, as well as heart disease, stroke, and emphysema. Professor Woodruff-Pak.
I'm very concerned about all the young women who are taking up smoking. The advertisers seem to have been very successful in creating cigarettes that have attracted would-be feminists. And as part of taking up this new assertive role, many young women seem to think that smoking goes with it. I think one of the greatest tragedies is when you see a pregnant woman smoking. All of the carcinogens that are entering into the mother immediately enter into the fetus as it develops. So for a woman's offspring as well as for herself, she just should not smoke.
Drinking. Are you a moderate drinker? That is, you never drink to the point of intoxication and have 1 or 2 drinks of whiskey or half a liter of wine or up to 4 glasses of beer per day?
Oh, I drink 4 glasses of beer every day because I love it.
Okay.
It makes up for all those other things.
For moderate drinking, such as your case, you get to add 3 years.
I add 3 years?
Add 3 years. A light drinker would have added 1.5. A heavy drinker or alcoholic would have subtracted 8.
So that's 3 added to 85 and a half, 88 and 88 and a half. Okay.
We really don't know what constitutes moderate drinking. 4 beers a day, every day, may well be excessive. But we do know that people who never drink live on the average a few years less than so-called light or moderate drinkers. We also know that heavy drinking harms the heart, liver, stomach, and brain, and is a contributing factor in many accidents, suicides, and homicides. Very possibly there's some other characteristic, like a personality trait, that's common to light and moderate drinkers, but not to abstainers. And it may be that factor, rather than alcohol itself, that makes for a slightly longer life. Exercise. How much do you exercise?
Just exercising on the weekends does not count, is it? I run 3 miles a day almost every single day, rarely miss a day. So, that's
91.5. Larry is a serious jogger. What he's heard and read about is generally true. It helps to engage in strenuous exercise 3 or more times a week for at least 30 minutes per workout. Not only does exercise add to our physical well-being, it also benefits mood and mental functioning. Sexual activity. If you enjoy regular sexual activity, that is sex once or twice a week at least,
yes, I do.
add 2
And
years.
I enjoy it, too.
Add 2 years.
I add 2 years?
Right.
Right, but don't tell my wife about it. It's a little joke.
At this point, Larry is up to 93.5, and Susan is holding at 76.5.
Regular physical examinations. Do you have an annual physical examination by your physician, which includes a breast examination and pap smear for women? If so, add 2 years. No, I don't have a regular one. Okay, so leave it the same?
Mm-hmm.
76.5.
And I'm going to be 60, and from all the evidence, I'm going to make sure I have a proctoscopic examination. I've had a couple in the last couple of years, but I'm going to make sure I have one every year after 60.
So that's 2 more years for 95.5. How did Professor Woodruff-Pak arrive at her estimates of years to add or subtract for each questionnaire item?
Well, the calculation is based on all of the research that's been involved in both animals and humans that indicates what that factor has done for life expectancy. But I want to make another caution at this point. All of the data that we have on humans are correlational. That is, we correlate or relate one factor, let's take moderate drinking, with life expectancy. So we ask people, are you moderate drinkers? This is not an experiment, though. We haven't manipulated drinking, so we don't know that there's a causal relationship.
Take another example. On a hot summer day, sales of ice cream might go up. So might the number of drownings. There would be a correlation between the two. But does that mean that ice cream shortens lives, that it causes people to drown? More likely, a third factor comes into play: summer heat. The heat produces 2 effects. 1, more people buy ice cream. 2, more people go swimming and put themselves in danger of drowning. Correlation does not prove causation. What proves causation is experimental manipulation, but that can rarely be done with humans.
Well, as you can imagine, we can't do an experiment where we let half of the subjects have sexual activity and half not. But that study has been done with rats. And it's been demonstrated that male rats who are allowed access to female rats on a regular basis live about the same amount longer as rats that are allowed to exercise. And one of the questions that was asked was, is this a physical exercise kind of benefit? And the researchers determined that when they manipulated both exercise and sexual activity, there was an extra positive benefit added on for sexual activity.
The life expectancy test is limited in other ways. For one thing, no one has followed individuals who have taken the test to see if predictions are accurate or not. For another, many questions call for subjective assessments and rely on the shifting sand of memory. But despite these limitations, no one disputes two conclusions. First, all four areas tapped by the life expectancy test, genetic history, personal health habits, socioeconomic status, and social and personality characteristics, have a significant effect on longevity. Second, we can indeed take steps to increase the odds of a long and healthy life. After figuring out the impact of genetic history and personal health habits on their lives, Susan and Larry now come to a third set of questions. The questions are based on correlations between length of life and socioeconomic status.
Years of education. How much education have you had? Add or subtract the number of years shown on table C.
Okay, yeah.
Okay. I've had 4 or more years of college, so I add 3. That makes me 79.5.
Occupational level. If you were working, what is the socioeconomic level of your occupation? Okay, and it says add or subtract the number of years shown in Table D. Here we go, Table D. Gee, I suppose I'd fit in Class 2, which is technical, administrative, and managerial. Looks like you add a year there.
99.5, going for 100.
Family income. If your family income is above average for your education and occupation, add 1 year. If it's below average for your education and occupation, subtract 1 year. We can take a year off immediately.
Education actually adds years onto life, though you think all that studying is going to kill you. It's education that often launches your career. And education, occupation, and income are the things that determine socioeconomic status. The higher a person's socioeconomic status, the longer they're likely to live. It's another correlational finding. Socioeconomic status may also explain why whites in the United States outlive blacks by about 6 years. This life expectancy difference is most likely a result of blacks living in conditions less conducive to health. Infant mortality among blacks, for example, is twice what it is among whites.
Okay, now we're going on to lifestyle. All right, rural versus urban dwelling. If you live in an urban area and have lived in or near a city for most of your life, subtract 1 year. If you've spent most of your life in a rural area, add 1 year. Okay, well, I lived in a really big city growing up and now live in a smaller city. But I think we've got to subtract 1 year there. You can't help but believe when you... growing up as I did, that the factories and all that, you can see why they'd have that in there.
Being a country boy helps, but not much. And nothing will help you get beyond the upper limit of the biological clock. Professor Woodruff-Pak.
Another myth about life expectancy is there must be some Shangri-La somewhere where people do really live longer. And we looked at the data really carefully, life expectancy in all of the states. And the only factor that's really clear is that if you live in rural areas, you probably have a year longer in your life expectancy than you live in urban areas, and the reasons are pretty obvious. So life expectancy in these places may be a little higher than average, but the human lifespan is 120 years, and there's no one who's lived who's known to have exceeded it.
As we turn into the home stretch of the questionnaire, Susan at 79.5 is still beneath her baseline age, while Larry at 99.5 has added over 20 years to his life expectancy. The final set of questions concerns social and personality characteristics. Larry picks up a year for being married. Susan loses 2 for being divorced and the head of a household. Had Larry been divorced and living alone, he would have subtracted 9 years.
I don't believe that one.
Why?
Why? Because divorced women have so much more to do. They have less income, and they can't hire someone to take care of the house or the lawn or the car. It's very nerve-wracking to try and worry about painting the overhang on the house, cutting the lawn, repairing the plumbing, paying the bills, worrying about your car insurance. Plus, you have to worry about your kid, whether they ate the right kind of dinner. Did the laundry get done? It's the number of chores, not that you have to do them.
You might disagree with the data, but they show consistently that in terms of health and longevity, men suffer more than women from the death of a spouse, divorce, and living alone. For both men and women, greater longevity has been found among persons who are involved with others. People who live to be 100 seem to be people-oriented people. They're individuals who are outgoing, who like people, who need people, who seek out other people's help and support.
Life changes. Are you always changing things in your life? If so, subtract 2 years. I think we should take the 2 years off, but I don't think we should take it because I deliberately changed things. But I think there's been a lot of change due to the ages of my children leaving home, changes in social set due to divorce, change in jobs due to divorce. And although it's been over a long period of time, it seems to keep cycling. 75.5.
Friendship. If you generally like people and have at least 2 close friends in whom you can confide almost all the details of your life. If so, add 1 year. I do them. So, it's 101.5, hovering around 100 here.
There are other personality factors affecting length of life. If you're aggressive, angry, and always feel like you're under pressure, you lose points. Larry loses points, 2 of them. And Susan?
I think I should take off 2 years because when I really want to get something done, I get pretty intense.
All right, flexible. Are you a calm, reasonable, relaxed person? Well, I think I'm reasonable, but I don't think I'm particularly calm. I think I'm going to take 1 off there, taking us down to 98.5.
Depression correlates with shorter life expectancy.
I would say I'm tense a lot. I don't think I'm depressed necessarily, but I think I'm a very intense person. But since I've always been that way, it's hard for me to rank how many years I would subtract for it. To me, maybe 1, because that is my typical way of behaving. We're down to 74.5.
We come to the final question with Susan in her mid-70s and Larry verging on 100. It appears that one of the best ways to extend your future is to find happiness in the present.
Happy personality. Are you basically happy and content, and have you had a lot of fun in life? If so, add 2 years. People with feelings like this are the ones who live to be 100. I don't think I'm particularly happy all the time, but I don't think I'm unhappy. So we can leave it at 74.5.
Well, let me see. I'm not always content, but I certainly have had a lot of fun. I'm going to add 1, which takes me to 99.5.
At 74.5, Susan lost 6.5 years from her baseline life expectancy. What's her reaction?
I was down to 3 cigarettes a day once. And then I started dating a smoker, and I went back up. But after reading the questionnaire, the one thing that I could do more for myself is to cut back my smoking. And if I'm really afraid that I'm going to, quote, get humongously fat by totally quitting, I can add at least several years back onto my life if I cut it down to 3 again.
At 99.5, Larry gained 21.5 years and more than compensated for his initial disadvantage as a male. What's his reaction?
I don't know that I want to live. You certainly can't have sexual activity a couple times a week at 90. Well, maybe you can at 99.5. I don't know that most people live that long or very happy. On the other hand, the alternative I don't like the alternative either. But it's nice to know that I've got the potential to do that.
Genetic history, personal health habits, socioeconomic status, social and personality characteristics. Some of these are beyond our control, but many are not. Despite the uncertainty of correlational statistics, scientists agree that there are things we can do to live healthier and longer. In fact, the evidence suggests that the older people are, the more conscious they are of taking care of their health. And middle-aged adults today are taking better care of themselves than previous generations did. They are improving the odds. Still, none of us has a crystal ball. Life expectancy data tell us only about potential, not about individual fates. For the individual, for each one of us, the surprise and unpredictability of life still remain.
Doctor calls him in. He says, I got bad news and bad news. I'm sorry. The guy says, tell me, what? I says, first of all, tests I did on you, I discovered you've got 1 day to live. Oh, the guy says, that's terrible. He says, what's the other? He says, the other news, I've been trying to get you for 24 hours.